we're good to go. We're ready to rock. All right, let's talk about it then. It is going to be ByuN going up against RagnaroK. And Wardy, RagnaroK's not looked amazing in this matchup as of late. In the qualifiers for GSL, I even saw he lost against Innovation of all people. I mean, Innovation's really good, but he's, you know, come back.
What a scrub, that Innovation guy, right? Like, I mean, it's surprising, though, because Innovation, obviously just back from the military, and when we've seen Innovation, he's not been looking amazing, but I feel like Innovation, like, went offline for 10 days and just practiced hard and then, like, came out of beast. So I'd be really interested to see what those games look like. Either way, yeah, RagnaroK didn't make it into GSL. I just don't think that's indicative of how good he is. I think he's better than that. I think he played some tough matches. The only real upset, I would say, in that GSL qualifier was losing to Innovation. Yeah, you know, that's just unlucky. Like, the one match that, you know, is probably the one you're meant to win is the one you lose, and yeah, it just happens, right? But he's an absolute beast. He can take down ByuN. I cast him last week, 2-0 in ByuN, and ByuN doesn't look like he had half a chance, which is wild because we know ByuN's really good as well. ByuN has been on absolutely top form over the last year and continues to be in that top form as well. So a series here, which I would maybe favor a little bit to ByuN, like a 2-1 or so, but would not be shocked at all if RagnaroK came in and won it all.
I mean, that's the thing about RagnaroK's ZVTs is they all go the distance, but then, as you say, he kind of has that little hurdle at the very end of the best of three that doesn't quite go his way. Ben, your thoughts coming into this match? Obviously, ByuN's quite the trickster and good in the matchup.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, when I think of both these guys, this is kind of their almost specialist matchup, like ZVT and TVZ against one another. I think also with the fact that Gumiho is the one waiting in the upper bracket in this section definitely spices things up a lot for both of them, because I dare say that they're both far more comfortable against Gumiho than falling down to play against Hero. But yeah, I think ByuN is one of the more predictable Terrans out there, which makes him a lot easier for somebody like RagnaroK. Like, he isn't one of these super finessey Zergs. I kind of class him as like a Sue kind of guy. Like, he's very fast and very good at just doing what he does. Not necessarily all the kind of crazy spellcastery stuff, but doing that stuff and playing a game of bio, he's super good at. I think the Terrans that can mix it up and play those weird openings, such as like the Marus of the world, are far scarier for RagnaroK. So I think they both look at each other as one that they can take down as long as they're on tip-top form, because both these guys are very good at doing what they do in ZBT.
Yeah, for RagnaroK, sometimes he looks almost infallible unless he goes up against a Maru, and then he kind of has that stumbling block. But, you know, we'll see how this is actually going to play out. Any final thoughts, Wardy, before we head on into this one?
Just excited to see what kind of builds we get. You know, ByuN has been open to kind of going for the multi-Rax Reaper a lot recently. Leads him into like the big bio plays, which he loves to do. RagnaroK has been a big fan of going heavy mutas, but we've actually seen a kind of trend towards roaches in ZVT. So it feels like almost anything is on the table, and that's just in general what makes ZVT very exciting lately. Never mind between these two.
Fair. And Ben, final thought here. If who do you think would have the better edge against Gumiho later on if they were able to actually move through to that best of 5? Any thoughts?
Like, I mean, Gumiho after just beating Hero is crazy, right? I do think Gumiho's mech might be a bit scary for RagnaroK, because if he just plays straight up bio, I think RagnaroK does have the edge there, but I think they're both favored against Gumiho, if I'm honest. I think they're both favored. TVT, ByuN is very solid. I feel that there's only kind of one Terran on the planet that's definitely better than him, but even he gives him a run for his money in that matchup. Yeah, honestly, I think both of these guys are looking at this as whoever wins, they have a very nice opponent coming up for them next.
Quite wild how the bracket has actually sorted itself out so far. I didn't expect to be here, Wardy, with the results we've had. And then, as you say, it makes the lower bracket all the scarier, especially, well, if there wasn't another bracket for them to play next weekend. But still, it's kind of crazy results so far.
Oh, no, absolutely is. I mean, it's kind of a testament to how competitive Korea is at the very top end right now. And maybe Maru does stand, you know, a little bit above everyone else, because I have seen Dark losing to players, I have seen Hero losing to players, and usually it's in these bigger tournaments, right, where they step it up again, but they've not quite done that today. So Korea's just super competitive. The only player that's not really having a blip against the other Koreans right now is Maru, and yeah, I mean, we'll see if that continues.
Let's see if any more blips happen. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Time now to head over to the commentary team for this one, as we have our final Korean series before we get into the non-Korean bracket here for the day.
All right, very exciting to see some more matches here. I feel like we've got, of course, a player that is so solid in ByuN, But RagnaroK seems like he's been a trailblazer in the last year, doesn't he, Zombie Grub? Just coming out with those creative plays, different ways to approach the matchup. And of course, the famous move where if he gets ahead, we're going to see 100 Banelings in a big ball just roll through everything Terran has.
Yes, I think our Tosis would call that so many Banelings. Yeah, he does do that. RagnaroK, as I had said in the pre-show, though, for me is still just a big question mark. And every time I feel like I'm finally jumping on board or jumping off board, something appealing is on the other platform. You know what I mean? It's like jump on board. Okay, now the platform's more appealing, and the opposite happens when I'm off. Because RagnaroK is just hot and cold. He'll do super well in Katowice, meet the brick wall, which is unfortunate for him, that is Maru, but then lose out to innovation, as the Desk was talking about, which, you know, given 5 years ago would be like, oh, Zombie Grub, that's really harsh, man. He lost innovation. What's wrong with you? Innovation only just recently came back, guys. He is not the innovation of old, whereas RagnaroK has been playing the last few years, you know, steadily. So that wasn't supposed to happen. And RagnaroK not even in GSL because of that. So I have no idea what to expect from RagnaroK, but I do think we have a solid idea of ByuN just because he plays so darn often. Let's go ahead and see what happens. Starting off on Babylon in the bottom rights, it is ByuN for Shopify Rebellion.
Going to be continuing his years-long love affair with Reapers in this game, but let's introduce the other player first of all. Up in the top left side, in the blue, representing Alpha X, it's RagnaroK. And that's going to be the low ground 2-Rex Reaper build that ByuN has just been spamming out there lately. A build where I feel like a guy like RagnaroK, if he expects this, usually has like very clever solutions to it. And for now, 17 supply into a gas here. Okay, gas pool opening for RagnaroK. Yeah, that'll be perfect to shut this down.
ByuN is a fan of this opener, so it's not really a super dangerous call, I think, for to go for like a pool first and a gas as well. I am thinking, I personally still view ByuN as a player who can do multiple builds. I know that at Series in Katowice, he did like the same thing basically every single time. But for me, when I watch his online play, he does sometimes do like a command center first, for instance, or a regular Hellion build or a medevac build. When that like fast battle cruiser off of the dropship was popular, he did that for a while. But it is doing 2 racks, and perhaps that is just something he favors on Babylon in particular, which is totally fair. And we'll see what the aggression can actually yield, given that RagnaroK is also doing an unorthodox opener for Zerg.
I don't think there's that many ledges to really jump up and down on this map. Like if you look at the architecture, you really can't abuse the ledges the same way you can on the big green map, Ancient Cistern. So it's probably just going to be 3 Reapers, I would imagine, into the expand. And especially with link speed coming in so early, you really don't want to commit more than that. Sometimes with this build, ByuN hides a 3rd barracks in his main and really goes hard, but this is not going to be that version. So it's going to be interesting to see what RagnaroK does in the follow-up. He seems to have pulled off gas, so I think for him it's just macro behind this and kind of try to get that economic lead. I think RagnaroK's very good at preparing for his opponents and avoiding the really frantic, oh no, I went hatch first and these Reapers are dancing around my base, those intense micro situations, because RagnaroK, I feel like, is nowhere near the speed of a guy like ByuN or a guy like Dark, these guys that are so mechanically gifted. But RagnaroK uses his brain, he uses his preparation and his strategy to make up for that.
Well, ByuN is going for that command center, as you stated. And yeah, I remember the 3CC being popular on a Moon Dance. You know, you can kind of trick your opponent. What am I doing? But ByuN has gotten the favored positions as well, which also honestly might influence when he does the T-Rax opener, as his add-ons are perfectly safe from any form of aggression, whether it's a run by or the Reapers do get surrounded and then you're just, you know, down only a couple of Marines. You're still pretty protected. But then following up here with 2 additional barracks. So, you know, could be going up to a factory and we'd be calling it a 2-1-1. 3 racks, I still would expect a factory again, but 4 barracks in total. It's going to give you a lot of Marines, and it goes back to, I think, a phase that we were watching with the likes of Cure as well. Of that 4 racks pressure, that's really difficult for a Zerg to read accurately, because even if they realize that it's 4 racks pressure, the ebb and flow of what happens afterwards is still very difficult for Zergs to judge correctly.
And ByuN even sometimes pulls the boys. Like, he actually does an SCV pull versus Zerg with this 4-rack sometimes, where he kind of moves out with a few Marines, and he's like, oh yeah, look, it's like 15 Marines pressuring, and there's like another 10, 15 Marines hidden behind that and the SCVs. Obviously, it basically relies on surprising the Zerg. I don't think he'll do it here. I think it'll just be a lot of Marines coming across the map, but nonetheless, still a very scary attack. Finally, these Reapers getting cleaned up. RagnaroK gets map control with that. Is he going to be able to sniff out this attack when it moves out? Because Stim's almost done. Shields is on the way as well. And I'd imagine that ByuN wants to be out there scaring RagnaroK off of that drone key.
He really, I mean, you cannot tell as the Zerg player what this build is as the follow-up. For all he knows, 2 medevacs are about to pop out and hit him in the third base or something, right? So when he knows, he'll know pretty quickly with the Ling's map control. You can see the Marines move out, but you can also, as our observer's trying to highlight here, ByuN's also making sure to hide the amount of Marines that he has. He's really trying to keep them in the dark as much as possible. You know, it's a Marine-based build, that much RagnaroK would know, but, you know, is it 4 racks or is it going up to a starport? It's a big difference. And I was saying he might know immediately because I thought a Ling would be positioned where the Marines just went out, but it's not. And even if it was, ByuN again, so mindful of just partitioning his units so they're not all seen together. Oh,
you're kidding me. That Zergling on the right, this is so bad. I mean, the only thing worse is, look, now he puts a Zergling out to give him the illusion of I've got full map vision. This is so bad. Okay, he should realize there's only 3 Marines there. He should know there's an attack. He's got to morph Banelings. It's a lot of Marines arriving at the doorstep. Baneling Nest is done. He has a decent Zergling count, but he's up 15 workers right now. Very greedy situation for RagnaroK. He's making 4 Banelings. Remember, this is ByuN. He is the master of focusing Banelings down.
Right. He could choose to engage, right? But he could also choose not to. And that's, again, going back to that ebb and flow trickiness that I was trying to discuss, which is that RagnaroK can't chase, you know, off of creep without Bane speed. He's not chasing down Marines to, well, maybe he would, but that also could be a mistake, right? So you want to try and read this, defend against any potential pull of the trigger from the Terran, but then also make sure that you're droning enough not to fall behind. And what could actually still not turn out to be a bit of a macro game. Now, it's definitely not an ideal one for the Terran without a 3rd CC, and in fact, it might not be one at all. Maybe ByuN turns this into a 2-base tank attack. Okay, 3rd CC is on the way. I was going to say that'd be quite late, but just throwing it out there. But yeah, it could turn into a macro game, and ByuN is pretty much doing that at this point. So the goal now for ByuN, since there was no one moment to strike, one moment to win, would be just to continue to keep RagnaroK off his game, you know, off balance, and then maybe win out that way, which he did very well in Katowice against Lambo.
4th base is on the way now for RagnaroK. He's building a lot of leads. I feel like he was quite greedy earlier. And I think for ByuN, he needed to exert a little bit more pressure, but because of the early Ling speed of RagnaroK, he was afraid of getting surrounded. And now he really needs to get something done with this army because RagnaroK's starting to pull away. He's pulling ahead. He's got 1-1 upgrades. Baneling speed is on the way. The creep is starting to blossom out on this map. You give RagnaroK the freedom, and he will cover this map in creep spread. So this push here doesn't need to kill RagnaroK, but it needs to slow him down and start to kind of limit his ability to build economy. I like the positioning for RagnaroK. He forces him to siege so far back.
Well, he is taking this base. Now, it's a base that he might be able to give up because he does have another 4th on the way. So that you know, Zerg trick, right? Oh, no, I lost a base. But that is a nice tank spot for ByuN that he can run back into. And we saw this abused a lot over, well, any tournament, honestly. So, yeah, that's an easy snipe. Not really all that crucial to RagnaroK's development, though. The major concern would maybe be Larva if he really can't get a 5th hatchery up and running.
Yeah, I mean, RagnaroK can easy drop a macro hatch or a base in the north. I like the fact that he built the hatchery. To me, this is RagnaroK saying, oh no, you got my 4th. Oh, that's so frustrating. But he doesn't care. He's way ahead right now. The SCVs transfer. If the Banelings get them, they're in the open. Mistake for RagnaroK there. Those SCVs were sitting out there for the pickings. He didn't want to walk into the tank fire anymore, though, so he does miss out on an opportunity despite that. RagnaroK's in control. 17 more Banelings are making. A RagnaroK of Banelings is where you get 50 or more in a big ball, and he's getting very close to that now. That is a lot of Banelings.
I am worried that ByuN is going to be so caught up trying to be fast and agile and drop, push that he'll just get punched in the face. I think that is very possible. But if ByuN starts to convince that, you know, RagnaroK, that you need to be more scared of me than I am of you, then this could turn into exactly a ByuN game, in my opinion, which is that he doesn't necessarily have himself in the best of positions. The build order in general might be kind of questionable as far as to its real power. It kind of relies on maybe something going well for him as opposed to being just a solid build overall. But he still makes it work. The follow-up is still aggressive. His control is still amazing. His constant pressure is still really hard for the Zerg to deal with. That's a ByuN game to me, and it's starting to shape up when, like, right now, as RagnaroK is just now pulling back and keeping his home base safe.
Oh, 2-2 upgrades coming in for both sides now. It feels like RagnaroK not pulling the trigger. I think he's kind of just chilling out and waiting for now, but 4th Command Center is on the way. ByuN is getting higher and higher in supply and setting himself up for the late game with that 2nd factory coming in as well. As the Infestation pit comes in for RagnaroK, that'll unlock Hive. It feels like he's really waiting for ByuN to make that mistake, overstep somewhere where RagnaroK gets the opportunity to crush the army. But a surprising amount of patience, but there we go. He's going to jump on it.
Yeah, some Marines are going to be saved, and the tank is getting quite a few shots on those banelings. Oh, exactly.
Oh, my lord.
Yeah, wow, this is actually turning sour on RagnaroK. This was supposed to be a complete removal of the army and end up just only really removing the tank. So many Marines left over. Such wonderful trades against those banelings. That is not at all what RagnaroK was hoping for.
No, you've really got to make sure when you attack that position, you've got a lot of banelings coming through from the very bottom, from the start, because you've got to blow up the Marines in the choke point so you can wrap around the siege tank. And that's the beauty and the frustration of that position on that map. And RagnaroK took a nasty trade, but it's a small trade. The game is big enough now. One small fight like that, a skirmish, really is not going to change the outcome all on its own. It's more going to be about the next step and where the players go. RagnaroK hasn't started his Hive just yet, I don't believe. So he's really got to get a move on with that, as well as, I'm curious, is it just going to be Ultras? Or are we also going to see, like, Infestors or something? I feel like RagnaroK is a guy who says, well, that would be dumb. Tech, why would I spend my tech on that? That's less banelings. Everything you spend gas on is less banelings I can make. And I kid you not, I joke about it because it looks comical, but it's actually insane. Like, you need to pre-spread across 2 to 3 screens or you will lose because there's so many banelings. That army there, a lot of Terrans, they underestimate it. They forget that if you're not pre-spread, you can't do the big ball and start a step back. It's not going to work. ByuN's way too clumped right now. He's got great tank position, though, and collapsing the rocks, that position's very hard to assault.
If the first phase of the Pokemon is you as a kid thinking upgrades aren't worth it, why would I get upgrades? I just make upgrades. Then RagnaroK is the Charizard, the tier 3 level, all right? Like, why get technology? Why get Infestors? Just go mass Baneling. And it does work. I think you absolutely nailed it. It just is so shocking when this happens. And some Terrans, honestly, especially over the development of the matchup over the last, I want to say, year, I swear there was a part where people thought ghosts were legitimately overpowered. Okay, fair enough, whatever. And then there was a part where the Zergs kind of figured out what to do against it. And now we do still occasionally see Terrans who are very stubborn in the way that they go into late game. Which is to say, they don't seem to really be accounting for the actual composition of what their opponent's doing, and that could just be scouting or different opinions of what is actually the best late game. Fair enough, but if ByuN picks up on how RagnaroK rolls with all these banelings roly-polying, I actually have the utmost confidence that he will play the correct style, which slow, steady, great tank position, good use of the rocks, and maybe not so overboard on some of the high-tech units, and thus start lacking splash, which can happen the longer this game goes.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a 3rd factory coming up with a reactor and, some Widow Mines getting mixed in there or something as well, just to add a little bit of depth to the army. The production tab is insane for RagnaroK. You can really tell RagnaroK was saying, okay, he's going to attack me. He has to attack me. Terran always has to attack the Zerg. And he was just waiting for that big mistake, that move out. Beyond this, absolutely switch gears to turtle mode. He realizes that's a threat. But now you've got pathogen glands, vipers. You've got the greatest spire for a potential broodlord swap. And I mean, broodlords destroy mass tank. 3 more factories on the way for ByuN. He's going to be able to make tons of Thors reactively. That's all about getting lots of tech lab factories. So if he sees broodlords, he can make 5 Thors at once.
Yeah. Get it, man. I love it. I mean, ghosts are also a fine answer when you can get them, but currently ByuN is actually rather well. Okay, hold on. I was going to say ByuN is, I think, still kind of on the correct composition, right? Which is that it's basically just Marine tank, only a handful of Marauders. One, because he's maxed out and hadn't traded yet, but two, because RagnaroK was also still only maxed out on basically that Ling Baneling. Now some spellcasters, now some tier 3 units could be making their way out. But ByuN just simply wasn't paying attention right there. I don't think that was a intentional trade in that fashion. But now he can fill the rest of the supply with whatever he thinks is necessary. The scans are revealing a certain intent from RagnaroK. And I think those Thors on the way are just him, adapting to what is becoming a very much late game TVZ.
Lots of Broodlords are going to be coming out very soon. Thors are building and double armory, blue flame as well. So great upgrades for ByuN. If he gets +3 Hellbats, they'll one-shot Zerglings, already one-shotting Broodlings, of course. Thors will destroy Broodlords in a head-to-head fight. And it feels like RagnaroK has been very slow to get to this point in the game. You know, he really did not expect ByuN, the aggro guy, the guy that loves to attack all game, to be this patient. But ByuN is showing the ability to adjust against his opponent. He says, hey, if my opponent is known for just massing Banelings all game, don't give him the opportunity to fight. Only stay off creep. If you go on creep against RagnaroK, it's a death sentence. This guy is so much better on creep with that Ling Bane army.
Yep. ByuN's been controlling this very well, again, from a position in which I think we both identified as him being behind, but I was arguing that it's still manageable because ByuN just does this. This is so... what really makes him special, in my opinion. But the continuing adaptations going on here, and the real counter that is Thor Hellbat coming out, and of course adding in some Ghosts too. I'm really scared that RagnaroK, you know, the best time for him to win, as you were saying, defensive Ling Baneling fights, might already be going away. And is he actually better in the late game with Broodlord Spellcaster than ByuN, who seems to be reading him perfectly?
There's only queens for anti-air, so even after abducting the liberators, they just fly back, and then they just siege again. And then they get abducted again, and they fly back, and they siege again. So you really need something that actually takes those liberators out. I think RagnaroK will probably add Spore Crawlers on the front line. He's building a single Hydralisk right now. But with no Infestors, there's also no real threat to the Ghosts. So I think normally I like ByuN's army against an Infestor-heavy force, but now, seeing no Infestors, adding more Ghosts, a perfect call.
Mm-hmm. I'm really concerned, man. I know we've seen a couple of Supreme late game TVZs where it is a literal just contest, the best Zerg army head to head against the best Terran army. But generally, I'd say if we compare this to other TVZs, hold on a second, RagnaroK seems like he wants to go, and he actually is pulling the trigger all off of creep into the tanks, into the mech units. The Banelings are getting connections, or at least trying to, as the Thors get picked up again. The Baneling number is still an uptick in that planetary, and RagnaroK can say that he did break this, but it's not like you broke ByuN.
Yeah, remember, every single fight is basically RagnaroK throwing haymakers. He has so many Banelings, it's so cost inefficient. If he doesn't knock ByuN out of this game, these fights are not good for him in the long run. But he's mining a forward base here already. That's what's so good for RagnaroK. If RagnaroK mines out both of the middle bases, that means he can be 2 bases extra efficiency. He also transferred drones to the front bases. He's kept the bases in the back free. Zombie Grub, I've been shouting for the last 2 years that we have literally looked at so many Turtle Zerg versus Terrans, and as a commentator, I've been screaming at my screen saying, please start transferring workers to the front base against Turtle Terrans. RagnaroK apparently is there saying, I actually have been studying late game Terran, and apparently if they're turtling, you can mine their resources out. He's inflicting damage indirectly just by removing the resources from ByuN's side of the map first. If ByuN gets out there and denies these bases, then he can move the drones to the further back ones. This is such a smart move by RagnaroK.
He could even get away with that actual 6 o'clock base, the one that he's been creeping up. He could have gotten that as well. ByuN, I was going to say, what I was leading up to is that RagnaroK, you know, compare this to another TVZ, whoever the Zerg is, he's usually run buying by now, trying to dig into ByuN's third base, for instance, right? And they're just like, none of that's happening, but ditto on the side of ByuN. Aside from that one drop in the main base that was scouting the Greater Spire, which was very important, there really has not been any aggression from ByuN, not even like Liberator harassment. So, yeah, who is taking the most advantage of a very standstill game? And with this in mind, I am giving that edge to RagnaroK. This is really good moves.
Can we see the units lost tab observers, please? If we could, I'd love to. Yeah, about 5,000 resources difference, which if you're mining 2 more bases than them, that's totally fine. For this matchup, that's not a bad units lost tab at all for RagnaroK. It's actually quite impressive. Yeah. And ByuN, I mean, he's played patient, he's played turtley. but he's not like, you know, Dark, I know, can swap modes into Mega Turtle mode, right? I don't think ByuN has that same level of patience. So I have seen him play like 20 minutes, 30 minutes really patient, and then at some point he'll just grab his army and shove on creep. He doesn't really have the ability to play like a draw game or a mine out every last resource on the map game. Very rarely does he do that. Who knows? Maybe he's evolved. I could be wrong on that. But he kind of is in a position where it seems like that's what he's going to have to do. He does finally deny one of these central bases, and that is good. Only about maybe a third of the resources mined off that base. But RagnaroK keeps all the drones alive, pulls them back, and is calmly building the Broodlord count. So mass Broodlord Baneling Viper seems to be the comp.
Yeah, I mean, he's really developing into that perfect late game Zerg army. You know, the Broodlords aren't very plentiful, the spellcasters aren't very plentiful, and especially without Neuroparasite, you know, late game Zerg can be, you know, that's not fulfilled. But if you do get, let's call them a buttload of Broodlords, lots of spellcasters, and threatening Neuroparasite and Shark Infestors, then that is very scary to deal with, 100%. So ByuN is going to have to keep that in mind as well as we add on those infestors. Could be worried about some fungals, some burrowed EMPs, right? Stealing the ghost away. And just in general, even stealing the Thors away with Neuroparasite is a very effective move. How many Broodlords is that? 15? They're going to be decently upgraded as well. I mean, ByuN's also well upgraded. 16 Ghosts, 8 Thors, and Hellbats. So it's basically spooky mech at this point, 100% actually. And just needs to get a good position with the actual engagement when it's forced, because, you know, I think this is going to be where it's going to happen, man.
That cliff's a problem for the Thors. Notice how RagnaroK's trying to utilize that. Remember, Broodlords may be faster now, but their broodlings only last about half as long. You don't notice that normally in a short-term battle, but this attacking your own creep tumors to spawn broodlings from far away, that doesn't work anymore. That's what Dark used to use. A lot of the guys to siege players from a screen or two away. That's not gonna work out. So in these drawn-out situations, it does feel like the Broodlord is a worse unit than it used to be.
True. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that for a while. We were talking a lot about the patch and the implications in Katowice, and then I guess we didn't really see all that many very, very long late game TVZs to get that highlighted. But certainly I heard some of the Zerg saying that it was a pretty big deal. It was a pretty big nerf to their viability in a supreme late game scenario. But still, some late game Zergs definitely still winning out. So we have a lot of the kind of miscellaneous upgrades being gotten now at this point. ByuN going for the medevac boost. I mean, it's not really worth getting very early on, but it is an effective upgrade, let's call it that way. Both of them building up humongous banks as well. And again, looking for the best possible attack. But I agree with your point. I think ByuN having to push into this army, dealing with that ledge, that's just bad news for the army comp that he has.
Yeah, he's got to try and get some efficiency. I mean, I'm surprised he hasn't got a nuke or two just to zone, just to allow him to mine this base safely. Like, I really feel like, hey, this base has got thousands and thousands of resources. He's doing good ghost snipe attempts, but the infestors have been added in. 2 of those ghosts going down, and the tanks are friendly firing everything. They're killing the planetary there, like so much friendly fire from the siege tanks. The ghosts have been taking the friendly fire a little bit as well. 9 more Broodlords making. Oh, we're going to see 30 plus Broodlords this game. This is going to be a really crazy number of Broodlords. And if you can't protect those Thors, they're going to go down. It's really hard with the Banelings able to roll in on the Ghost. Broodlords on the south go down. Nice split of the army for ByuN.
Actually, yeah, I do like this split. Certainly, even as the game gets smaller, and this isn't exactly a super wide dimension map, the Broodlords get more effective because they don't have as much to cover. But if you can take advantage of Broodlord immobility, then you absolutely should. So that is what ByuN is finally doing, realizing that trying to force the head-to-head wasn't favoring him. Finally takes out this bottom left base, but it's already been mined out so much. Really kudos to RagnaroK for doing that. This base didn't get to mine, but at least it's creeped up for an extended period of time, and ByuN might still, honestly at this point, might be scratching his head a little bit about the actual end game, but kind of maybe keep your head down, do the work that you can do, and then see what happens afterwards as he finally clears up the south side.
The infestors can be a really big problem in the late game. If you don't have liberators or tanks to take them out, or you don't land the EMPs, they can steal the Thors, and an infestor neuroparasiting a Thor is one of the most ridiculously supply efficient things that can happen for Zerg. It's a 2 supply unit not only taking away one of your 6 supply units, but turning it against your own side. Like, it's basically a 12 supply flip, just like that. You're like, oh my gosh, like, it is absolutely crazy. If even just 4 or 5 Thors get stolen in a battle, it can be game-changing. So you're not only worried about the Hellbats being positioned to stop these broodlings, you've also got to have all of this going. Oh, big snipes!
Yeah, you notice the Overseers were with the army, and they were a little south, so they did miss the initial ghost snipes. Fungal helped out, and overall the Broodlord count still stays high, but ByuN's moving from left to right has caused RagnaroK to make moves of his own, which is further allowing ByuN's little tag teams to actually, 1, find things out of position, and 2, kill some bases that RagnaroK would still like to have mining freely. I mean, he's got a bank, but you don't just want to let all your bases go, right? So, I mean, these are the openings that ByuN was kind of hoping to create, and maybe they aren't exactly killing RagnaroK, whose army is just fantastic, but I feel better about ByuN's position than I did just a minute ago when everything seemed locked up in RagnaroK's favor.
Yeah, and remember, ByuN built the Iron Bank this game. He has like 10 orbital command centers, so he can drop mules for days. Like, he can just spam mules on a base whenever he takes it. Yeah, 9 orbital command centers. Whereas for RagnaroK, he's kind of annoyed at this point because he's like, well, I've got 50 drones, but even with that, I can't really mine these resources that quickly. I can't even secure these bases. Every second that this drags out favors ByuN because he just drops a command center, turns it into a planetary. He's much better in a defensive stance, drops 20 mules and mines the base out in a matter of minutes. And he's going to be able to drop his worker count even lower if he wants. He's at 40 workers, which gives him an extra 10 army supply. He can drop that down to 20 workers. Just use the SCVs to build buildings, repair things, take the gas mining, and rely purely on mules for mineral mining. Zerg does not have that option. They have to put supply in drones if they want to keep mining going. It's a big end game advantage for Terran. It may be hard to attack, but you kind of force the Zerg to make a play by building this massive orbitals and using this advantage.
Right. Compare the mini map to just 2 minutes ago, and I think the feeling is very different. 2 minutes ago, with all the creep, all the bases, RagnaroK taking ByuN's bases, it felt very tight for the Terran. Like they couldn't breathe, and now it's kind of flipped, where RagnaroK is definitely the one that is forced to make these decisions, actually forced to do stuff. He can't just give away bases and be okay with it. He wants to get something in return, and so he's trying to. But every time he pushes into ByuN, who is defensively positioned, even if it's not his entire army, ByuN's army is also effective. You really have the best late game compositions for either team, and it's how they use it, right? So ByuN initially going just kind of head to head on this upper right base wasn't going so well. Makes it a bit more mobile, suddenly doing a lot better. Does lose the space once again, but it's turning into a bit of a clock situation. You take south, I take north, and then we'll flip again.
11,000 resource advantage in the units lost tab. Now remember, despite that, it really is a very slow game ByuN has to play. Look at the bank. You can see that RagnaroK is still up on about 13,000 resources in the bank versus 4,000 or 5,000. Well, why does he have so much more? Because Terran spends so much more money on infrastructure. There is no massive spores and spines for RagnaroK, no massive barracks or anything. You build 15 command centers, you build 10 barracks, you build 5 factories, all of this turrets and sensor towers. ByuN puts a lot more money into that static defense. So even though he's being more cost efficient, he needs to continue that over a long period of time and slowly mine out these bases one at a time in order to catch up with RagnaroK. So ByuN has to show exceptional patience. This really is, I don't know, we could call this like sandpaper TVZ. You can't get in there with a big axe and try and lumberjack this Zerg down. You've got to just get the sandpaper and wax on, wax off, and slowly grind him to dust.
Ah, I see the spoon. So gotta bring
yes, the spoon, absolutely. No knifey spoony here, but that is a big push. The Broodlord's coming in. They're starting to take some big hits. Big hits landing, and the flanks from the top. Those ghosts, great funnels. The Ling Bane's going to ransack that left army. There is still 19 Broodlords left versus 11 Thors. The Banelings, if they get rid of the Hellbats and the ghosts, then these Thors are going to start getting taken. Infest is coming in with the Neurals. The Banelings, so supply efficient. This is massive for RagnaroK.
Yo, but this was the longest battle in StarCraft 2, seriously. Like, that's covered multiple screens and lasted a full minute, which is saying something in StarCraft 2. I think every time that RagnaroK thought that he had a burst, right? His Banelings connected, his Infestors got the Fungal, they got the Neural Parasite, usually that point in which the Zerg feels very confident and it's kind of like a do-or-die situation. ByuN came out with more units, man. First it was like the left side army comes through. Okay, I fungled that, so I'm okay, right? And then you kill the Hellbats, so I'm really doing well, right? And then suddenly a another Thor army comes from behind, the reinforcements, and then RagnaroK doesn't have enough staying power, basically. He kind of used up all of the initial burst that Zerg will have when they finally choose to take an engagement. And ByuN just kind of outlasted him. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that was still good enough for RagnaroK, who had that huge bank, but you do want to be careful always doing that, right? Like, what if it goes a little bit worse next time? What if you don't get the couple of those fungals? What if the Banelings don't kill all the Hellbats? Then the Thor Hellbat combination will just absolutely obliterate Broodlords. But that was a funny one.
There's a RagnaroK at Baneling zombie grub. So as much as I agree with all of your analysis, can he withstand 77 Banelings coming forwards? RagnaroK just going for broke right now. Fungals, Banelings rolling into a spread of Thors. The Ghost trying to pull backwards. The Baneling count seems endless. RagnaroK taking one of the dirtiest engagements I've ever seen in my life, and I do not think it goes his way. As long as there's enough Thors to hold off the Broodlords, he is now at a 20,000 deficit in the resources lost. That was an absolute slaughter.
So I think that's a brilliant move for 9 times out of 10 in TVZ, where it mostly is the case that Zerg Remax is faster, especially because you choose to Remax on Ling Baneling, which is all that's pumped out from your bajillion larvae you've saved up over a 30-minute game. But ByuN actually was also basically maxed out, right? That was a very even supply engagement. So then basically what, if you really boil that down to, was mostly Ling Baneling against spooky battle mech, spooky ghost mech, whatever you want to call it. It was mostly mech units, which Banelings are, infamously not the best against, as long as they're a tiny bit spread out, and the ghosts were controlled back and back and back and back and back. So then the Broodlords, were trying to do their thing, trying to abuse some tank fire on the Thors, trying to take care of the Thors before they had the Hellbats or ghosts back on the front lines, but what a resource committal. I mean, that is just madman RagnaroK, and the only reason he still has the supply that he does was because he had that huge bang from earlier. Otherwise, you pointed out, resources lost, big difference from a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, a few command centers have gone down, so the mule income isn't as great, but it still seems like, usually Terran is better in this scenario, but I don't know, 30 army supply advantage. RagnaroK is once again ready to throw the kitchen sink at him. Everything that isn't nailed down has been uprooted and put into this push. He is going to shove it in, but that's a terrible angle. Neuroparasite's pretty good, though.
Yes, yeah, great Neuroparasites coming down. A lot of the Thors taken out of the equation. That spread on the backside from ByuN might be very impressive and might be very efficient, but ByuN just didn't have that same bank. He has been looking for pennies to try and replace the army this time around, so RagnaroK finally able to say, I actually did bust the Terran army. You cannot remake. I remade faster. I had the bigger bank, and let me just finally take this game. 31 and a half minutes in. It took 3 solid, almost maxed out Zerg engagements, but he finally wore ByuN down.
The swap vintages, mass Baneling Hydras after the first big Broodlord attack. Very smart. Thors aren't specialized against that army. As much as they tank well against the Banelings, you really want to have units that counter those Lings and Banes, but they'd all been cleared out. And Thors, Ghosts, Hellbats, obviously, the less agile composition, unable to deal with it. I really feel like RagnaroK is the one guy out here who just has this beautiful mixture of both beautiful, successful, so effective Baneling engagements mixed in with these really bad ones where they kind of just like run up and smash against nothing. But overall, it's his decisiveness, his ability to not fight in bad situations that allowed him to power through. And RagnaroK once again shows that he can take out the best players in the game. This was really dirty because the Banelings rallied in the wrong direction. They were meant to come from the top ramp as well, but he misclicked. And this was a rough fight for RagnaroK, but he'd already built such a lead for himself. And I honestly put so much of it down to him transferring the drones. Great catch by our observer. If you move those drones to those forward bases, you actively punish a turtle player. Like, he got thousands of resources out of that side of the map. And remember, he lost so many bases. Most Zergs, when they lose those bases to that one ByuN split, it's game over. Their income is nothing, and they would have gassed out there by the end of that game. But RagnaroK just pulled his drones back. He had like 3 bases that were completely unmined in the very back, was able to use those. And it's cool to see a Zerg player just patiently making this adjustment and really learning from the last few years of this sort of turtled up Terran late game style.
Yeah. there's a lot of development for this late game, absolutely, that we're still seeing players kind of flesh out. But that was the sum of the game. The summary was that the Zerg got far enough ahead, kind of anticipating for that late game a little bit better than some other Zergs out there, and then was able to clobber the opponents over the head, not once, not twice, which wouldn't have quite done it, but 3 times. That third one, he was completely out of bank. If that didn't cut it, then that was going to be a very weird game. Scrappy Terran, trying to do their best versus Zerg, who can't mine anymore. But he had that bank to do that over and over and over again. But there are also times where ByuN definitely could have taken some better engagements. I think that first big attack where you're pointing out the banelings weren't quite coming in like they wanted to, there was a really nasty fungal and a decent amount of ghosts to the bottom side. Like that, if that had not happened, we have some different stories. Obviously, at any point, if all of the spellcasters had been EMP'd, if ByuN could have gotten one of those brilliant moments and there's no fungals, there's no neural parasites, that also could have drastically changed how things went. So, it's great that you could clobber him over the head 3 times, but you still have to be very careful. Like that is a dangerous situation for Zerg to be in if they realize, oh my God, I'm out of cash. Oh shit.
Yeah, I'm always
quite happen.
I'm amazed by that bravery, right? Zombie Grub. I'm always like kind of jaw slack, just like, are you really gonna run up that choke point with this very fragile army into splash damage? But the decisiveness, the knowledge to know it'll pay off, it's a beautiful maneuver. It's something which made the likes of Sue very great over the years, was the ability to attack into what in general is a bad situation, but in that specific scenario is the game-winning situation. And I think that's what RagnaroK shows, is an understanding of when and where to push. You could tell all game he wanted to fight on creep. ByuN didn't give him the opportunity to, but he adjusted and evolved from that situation. Let's go into NeoHumanity now. And of course, the Terran player there, an unfortunate loss for him despite playing a very good mid game in the top left side. Shopify Rebellion's ByuN.
In the bottom right, as the blue Zerg for Alpha X, it is RagnaroK.
Low ground wall off again for ByuN, but do you really want add-ons on the outside of this wall off? This is an ugly wall off on this map. It's not a pretty one. This map doesn't have the greatest ledges for your Reapers to jump up and down either, so definitely feels like ByuN goes through these phases where he does get addicted to certain builds, and maybe this one's starting to give him the itch. Maybe he says, I can just kill you with Reapers. But yeah, I can't imagine he goes 3 racks or anything crazy like that on NeoHumanity. It's meant to be a map that's pretty good for turtling in the late game, but I've very rarely actually seen it go that far. What about you, Zombie Grub?
Probably the latest one is the match we cast with Clem and Dark. I think it was fairly long.
Yeah, it was maybe like 16, 17 minutes, right? It wasn't like too crazy, I don't think, was it?
Well, certainly not the last game. And we were kind of talking with some of the other guys, and just the expectation for a best of 3 in StarCraft 2 is kind of settled, timing wise, all right, schedule wise. But for these 2 guys, if you had asked me if they were going to be very short best of 3 or very long best of 3, I personally would have said short. I would have expected one of them to be overly aggressive and either succeed or fail right then and there. But they're the ones that gave us potentially the longest game of the day, maybe even the tournament.
Solar Dark kind of threw me through a loop earlier as well. I was like, oh, this is going to be a 15-minute series. Like, they'll definitely... And I'm like, big, long roach macro games, lurkers and vipers. I'm like, okay, today is a day of surprising StarCraft matches, isn't it? And schedule be damned. But interestingly, we've got already a lot of Zerglings on the way to deal with those Reapers, which are in there right now. And they are starting to harass the Zerglings. None of them going down just yet, but already cancels a drone on the low ground. Didn't want that to get sniped by the Reaper, so RagnaroK just playing very safe, and he gets a 3rd base up behind it.
Yeah, and, at the very least, you want to stop that from happening, catch the drone before it goes over there. And to your point, this is a worse map just overall for ByuN's opener. Not that the opener is supposed to do a whole lot, but even the last map at least had an exit in the natural, which made it a little bit better. This is literally only that one spot the Reapers can jump up on. And Spawn position-wise, ByuN's add-ons are now on the outside. Now, we bring this up, and sometimes it doesn't matter at all, and who cares? And that might happen here today. But that is something to worry about when you open up like this. My add-ons are a little vulnerable. It's going to be a 3cc build following this up for ByuN. So I know you mentioned that last game.
Oh, imagine if RagnaroK was going Baneling Bust. Like, on this spawns, if there's a spawns to do it, you keep mentioning spawns, and with great reason, it makes such a difference when you go for the low ground wall off. You know, when you don't get punished, people say, why don't we always low ground wall off? It's so nice. It's so smooth to have your natural already walled off at the start, but there's a reason. But hold that thought. Reapers are getting surrounded. A couple Lings waiting on the high ground. Not enough to take him out, though. 3 Reapers do beat 4 Zerglings. He's going to try and escape back to the low ground. High ground, low ground, high ground, low ground. Queen and Zerglings will say no, but hey, forcing some spore tricks, and even gets a drone as well. Very nice play by ByuN. Gets a bit more value out of those 3 Reapers than I expected.
The third hatch is also, no joke, very low in health. He wasn't going to kill it. I love this micro. He wasn't going to kill it, but that's in the red. And if there was a 2-on-1 follow-up from this, I feel like you would just gun it for that, right?
Oh,
It's not. It's 3cc, so any drop coming out now is going to be a bit late.
Oh, very nice. Reactor is such a valuable structure. 50 minerals, 50 gas might not sound like a lot, but it's the build time that is so frustrating. It takes 36 seconds to build, which is an eternity in the high-paced game of StarCraft. It's going to now restart the reactor. A Raven coming in for ByuN. That is fascinating. So he just says, look, this is a big map. I don't want to be scanning all day. I want to get value out of the Raven, but very interesting to see that, as it's a bit different to what we expect. And it's spotted, interestingly. The Overlord sees the Tech Lab starport. Is he maybe thinking this is something like super crazy, like battle cruisers? Because you don't expect the Tech Lab starport here. I really wouldn't know what to expect as RagnaroK. He's building a lot of queens, though, so I think he's well set up no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. Just build queens. Easy peasy. Deal with anything, right?
Shoot up, shoot down, heal everything. Yep.
You gotta throw that in there, of course.
Best unit in the game.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. And I was with you, because that really is ambiguous. You're looking at it, you're double checking if it's cloak on the way, because a Banshee follow-up can just be even a protective measure. But then there's no cloak on the way, so then is it really going to be battle cruisers? But I saw Stim, and I saw you building Marines, and you're really going to do that this late after this kind of weird opener? I guess it would have been possible, but the Raven has since then been discovered, so if there was any fear of it, it's quickly dashed, and no joke, if he did make overmake queens by 1 or 2, it's really not all that punishing, and I don't think he did, so they can move on from that. They think they have a solid understanding of what each other's doing. Baneling 4 base versus Bio tank on 3 base. Raven is actually straight up denied, so
wow.
Not a good day for Ravens, honestly.
Yeah, we've seen multiple players spot their opponents ready for it and then just dive the Raven in. The Raven is a unit that is meant to be recycled. It's much like an Oracle. It's much better the longer you keep it alive. If you just throw it away, it's a disastrous investment. It's really bad. And ByuN continuing on when he saw the queens was a huge mistake. Maybe he just spotted it too late. He'd clicked it in, looked away, looked back, and it was already past the point of no return. So he said, why not try to get an auto turret down? But now the big Ling counterattack comes in, losing a lot of mining time. And an SCV or 2 on that base, most of them very heavily wounded now. RagnaroK has complete control. We already saw in that last game what RagnaroK looks like when he has control, when he's ahead of his opponent. And I've got to ask the question, against a guy who you're the faster player, you're the more skilled player in ByuN vs RagnaroK. I don't think that's controversial. I think RagnaroK would agree. He'd say, yeah, he's faster than me. Yeah, he can multitask better than me. Going for a 2-Rax Reaper opening, which RagnaroK appears to be a master of shutting down, seems like a massive strategic misplay. And I feel like ByuN's very good at coming back with his mechanics from these strategic misplays, but RagnaroK has not been giving him any chances.
Also, why theoretically put yourself behind if you are the more powerful one in those scenarios? I do want to go ahead and check some stats here, though. Can we see the income over the last period? So RagnaroK just got up to 80 drones. He looks beautiful, but it really has only been spiking, and not even that much. If you actually look at the numbers, spiking up to 600 more than your opponent, it isn't like amazing. Like, oh my God, flabbergasted. So I'm just trying to keep in mind that ByuN does still go up to a 3cc. The committal to the 2 racks for the Reapers is very low. It's more so to get that stim and Marine count up. And he does have both games faster upgrades, I believe, as RagnaroK, I think, just playing a bit cautiously. Might be suppressing his drone count a little bit for a little while, and then delaying those evolution chambers. Just things to keep in mind. Overall, I definitely agree with your assessment that I just feel like strategically maybe ByuN isn't really setting himself up the best, and RagnaroK is just proven to read all these things way too well. But ByuN is not so down and out, I guess, is really what I want to drive home. It's not like he dies immediately, but once again, we might be getting into that late game where, okay, that was beautiful, that was fun, but ByuN's power is that mid game, and he can't really push it as much as he was hoping to.
Yeah, and RagnaroK, I mean, his Spire is a little later than the Hive, but I still feel if he goes straight Greater Spire, makes 6 Broodlords, 8 Broodlords, and goes, I don't think there's any way ByuN holds on against that. ByuN's trying to push right now. Maybe he can find some good fights here in the mid game. Equal upgrades right now. The drops going around picking off Banelings. Hive is about to finish. A Viper or 2 would be amazing to Blinding Cloud that tank position. And I think this rich gas base, probably just give that up. There's no reason to sit here and fight this. I think as RagnaroK, try to get run bys if you can, though that's very difficult before your opponent takes a 4th base, and just wait for that Hive tech to come on in. Adrenal Glands would be great. 2 Vipers, it seems like, as well as Hydra, Lingbane, Viper coming in. I'm curious about the Spire. It feels like RagnaroK's going in many different directions at once. To go Hydralisk tech and for Broodlords at the same time seems like a little bit much.
It is a lot to commit to, but ByuN isn't really able to punish him. He's taking it very nice, slow and steady, so he clears up the creep and then says, I guess that's it, right? I'm not going to really push my luck here, which, I don't know, maybe he could have, maybe a little bit more. He did scout the Spire, I believe, with that medevac drop that got destroyed. So in that sense, I think the medevac drop still died with dignity. Because seeing the Spire at that timing is a big sign that it's going to be Broodlords, right? There's just no other... Why else did you get it in this type of game? So he'll be prepared for that.
No Liberators to take down with Corruptors or anything like that. Not that many drops, and Corruptor Lingbane is not really something we've seen in many years. But for now, Greatest Spire is almost done. Adrenal Glands is on the way. RagnaroK just keeps making Banelings and more Banelings. I really feel like RagnaroK is basically permanently ready to jump on you if you push. But we saw in the last game, ByuN's not going to do that. He's not going to make that mistake. So saving a bit of gas for more Corruptors and Broodlords would be great.
I would really love if ByuN just, last game, just added on a bit more splash. If he could, the downside of a lot of those engagements that he was losing the tanks, and then even if he didn't, the tanks were also friendly firing. You have a bajillion things to control, and tanks focus firing is one of the last things sometimes you get around to. Widow Mines are actually...
Oh my gosh!
Broodlords. Oh, nicely done. Marines looking out exactly for that snipe, and RagnaroK just kind of let him have it. But yeah, continuing on, Widow Mines are bad against Broodlords, but good against Lingbane. So there's more to it when it came to those final fights last game, but just in general, if ByuN had some more splash units impacting the overwhelming Lingbane that RagnaroK just loves going back into at any point in the game, I think he actually could have done much better too. And he might be identifying that. He certainly is playing up to that type of game once again.
Oh my lord, that is so many Baneling zombie grab. Clicking on the... Oh my god, clicks on the command center, but doesn't even get the other one with the splash. The Marines are well spread. The Banelings go for the other planetary. Oh my lord. RagnaroK taking the most disgustingly inefficient fight. He gets 3 command centers. So there's an argument that it ruins a lot of ByuN's income and infrastructure, but cost for cost, it's just nasty to look at that giant ball of Banelings roll off creep.
I know, right? If he didn't get those command centers, how big is the resource difference? The resources loss difference? Like 8K? I mean, that's crazy. It is unfortunate that ByuN couldn't get the cancel on the 2 bases that were going to go down. The planetary was, you couldn't do anything about it. But yeah, good thing RagnaroK has all of this bank and a little bit of creep spread to fall back on. Not amazing, but a little bit. And that was on ByuN's side of the map. That's also a really big deal. So ByuN can immediately counterattack because that was an awful lot to give away. Can't be doing that all the time, especially with the gas bank. That's non-existent. You can't build gas all that quickly.
The Broodlords are now morphing. Ghosts have got out, though, so I feel like if he went straight to Broodlords, I really agree. It would have been a kill timing earlier. Now, there is the dream of defense. It's still going to be very tough for ByuN. trying to build Vikings as well. I think he even took out one of his own medevacs to clear up supply. He desperately needs to get anti-air, and he just needs to survive. He's got so many tanks, which is great against the Banelings, but not able to take it out just yet. Now, those are actually destructible things, by the way, behind the central base. I still have not yet seen a single pro player realize they can take those out and move those tanks further forward, and they're actually in like an amazing position if you really tuck them right in the corners. But I don't know if the pro players even know about that. We'll find out one day.
I literally discovered this like a week ago. I accidentally shot it, and then the next day I cast someone who misclicked on it and lost a fight. So people are discovering it, but you're right. I just don't think, because alongside a lot of the other maps, honestly, we've only recently seen people really abuse some of the breakable rocks, the ones that collapse and then cut off reinforcements. So the map pool, despite now being months old, is kind of still being figured out.
Oh, here we go. Tank fire covering that base. Nice defense so far by ByuN. He's got 93 workers. That might be a few too many for ByuN, but I mean, obviously it gives him massive income, massive production abilities as well. And RagnaroK here taking more and more gases. Oh my lord, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bases of gas. He's going to go up to 14 gases. I guess his main is probably getting pretty low, but RagnaroK is just one of the gas heaviest Zergs I've ever seen. He is so gas hungry, because his regular ground units, which are normally mineral heavy, are all Banelings, which are very gas expensive. He's got 2 types of spellcasters. He's got mass broodlords. He's got every upgrade that you can possibly imagine. And yeah, he finds a way to just spend an insane amount of gas, probably far more than anyone else.
He needs it too. He absolutely needs it. It's something that he will have to rely on also being a bank of, if he plans on playing, well, like last game, but also just in general being the Zerg player, right? You expect to take the worst resources trade. You need that bank, and you might need it fast to really capitalize on momentum. So he's very keen on it, very much in the know, and he will have tons of gas bank, even surpassing his mineral bank, which is something to say. Once again, crazy number of broodlords. And the positioning of ByuN is not quite prepared to deal with this. He's only just recently added on the factories. It is Ghost Viking trying to handle this right now, which it might stem the bleeding. It might stop it, but it's not necessarily the end game. Vikings get, I don't know, not a big fan of Vikings personally.
The tanks need to unsiege. I think maybe he's afraid of the Banelings, though. The way RagnaroK threatens with those Banelings, it's like you have to leave the tank siege, but then they're doing so much friendly fire. It's very frustrating to play against this army, because at any moment RagnaroK may just roll 100 Banelings into you.
Yeah. I mean, so he does stop that from being a real problem by having just a decent number of units. That you know, the Vikings shooting up without anything retaliating was always nice. But I'm gonna stick with it. You don't really ever see Terrans try and go up to, let's say, 16 Vikings. You know, it's just too bad against the options of anti-air that Zerg could get if they saw you doing that. So the Thors really wanted to be out already compared to last game, and they are not. Only 4 of them available. Not a huge Hellbat count. Still those tanks sieged up. Again, having that double-edged sword to them. They need to defend against the Banelings, but they can't help out against the Broodlings.
Whoa, a few command centers do get taken out. By the way, ByuN did clear those rocks and move those tanks forward. They're going to hit the Banelings in a big way. Oh, those tanks landing some massive shots. 48 kills on that siege tank. I mean, I guess kill counts become meaningless once Broodlords are on the field, because they are free babies that are just constantly spawned into combat. The Hydra Baneling, they're trying to pick off some of these units, just dancing around. RagnaroK is taking a lot of bases. I'd love to see him mine out the very top right of the map as well, but he's already doing so much damage. And ByuN's bank actually a bit closer to RagnaroK's this time around compared to last game, but a lot of SCVs are falling. That's not too bad for ByuN. He had so many SCVs, he probably doesn't mind replacing that with extra army.
Yes, I think that's okay. He's been getting slowly picked at, but he's also been very capable of replacing whatever gets picked off. So that never had one moment of just go for it that RagnaroK was certainly looking for. And the positioning of the tanks with the minerals, I think, is one big issue. The fact that ByuN finally did get up to the composition more so that he was hoping for. Now rounding it out with the upgrades as well was definitely missing. And so RagnaroK, you know, the Massling Baneling couldn't kill his opponent. The Mass Broodlord, Blitz couldn't kill his opponent. Now it is time to add on those spellcasters, really get to that amazing late game composition that he did last game.
I feel like nukes would be amazing. I really hope ByuN adds them. I don't know if they're really part of his focus right now. You can see there the snipe change, those banelings getting out of range of snipe. For those who don't know, snipe now does have a maximum range. It isn't just about if you've got vision like it used to be, you can actually run away quickly and break it. So gives the Zerg a little bit more kind of disengagement opportunity compared to if you were watching matches a year ago.
Yeah. Which had mixed feelings, depending on who you asked. That's where we're at now. And RagnaroK still not finding an avenue into ByuN's middle, basically. That, again, the positioning with the mineral line especially is difficult to break. And then we got the extra bases to the side kind of given to each player. Last map, it did kind of just turn into a revolve around the map scenario where ByuN eventually got mobile and moved around. I don't know how NeoHumanity is going to work the same way. NeoHumanity is certainly more of just a literal split map. You have your side, I have my side, and if I go left or right, it takes me a long time to revolve around. But that's something that ByuN did effectively last game. He probably wants to do it again here, but currently, again, under fire. RagnaroK wants to try and actually break through this location, but once again, turned around.
Gets some good trades, but then whenever he retreats, the snipes, the Vikings, the Thors do punish him, and quite a few Broodlords fall. So, great blinding clouds, taking out some units, the Broodlords sieging them down. At the end of the day, I feel like after each of these skirmishes, we kind of just need to check the units lost tab to keep track, because there's so much going on. It's hard to keep track of it. 8,000 resource advantage. That's really not a huge discrepancy, and it's kind of funny because the last game, ByuN was up like 20k resources at the end and ends up losing. This game, it's actually closer to even, I would say. The ratio is a little bit closer. Yet ByuN's bank is way closer to RagnaroK's. Tells us that he has like embraced the massive worker count and this long game much earlier. It's kind of like he knew where this game was going minutes and minutes ahead of time, and he's more prepared for it mentally. And you can see the way he's just going to deny that base on the right side. He's going to keep looking for this fantastic ghost control and see what pickoffs he can get.
I mean, perhaps that's why he was a little bit later onto some of the production, actually, because last game it felt like his additional factories came down just so well timed that by the time RagnaroK was ready to move in with Broodlords, it was a proper anti-Broodlord army. There was a little bit more of a scary minutes when those Thors weren't out, and the Ghosts and Vikings were the actual thing that was stopping. Perhaps he was investing more into SEVs or command centers and then into production or something along those lines. We'd have to get the replay to double check. But the point is, yeah, nice bank for ByuN. If RagnaroK hopes to get those 3 in a row, club you over the head, hope it works, it wouldn't work. ByuN would be able to remax just enough to stop that from actually overwhelming him.
It's all going to be about the technicality with the engagements and the direct efficiency. RagnaroK now poking with these Broodlords. Every building he gets is valuable. ByuN's going to want to have to replace those. And Infest is just throwing these zoning fungals, catching the Vikings and Liberators a little bit, peppering them down. Abducts on the Liberators and actually having things that shoot up to take him out this time. Fungals landing all over those air units. The Vipers do stumble forward a little bit. Parasitic bombs on the Medivacs, but nice spready there from ByuN. ByuN's trying to hold on, but my God, that's a lot of Broodlords, and now the Banelings come through.
Where is ByuN's supply, man? I'm looking at the supply, expecting ByuN's to just dive bomb, and yet he's the one coming out a little bit ahead. Of course, RagnaroK's not remaxed yet. He's controlling this mass wave of Banelings, trying to get those pins that are the ghosts at this point. He's got to get them. He doesn't care if it's only 4 ghosts. He's got to get it. Get it.
Oh, my Lord. Such a good spread there from ByuN, making sure like 6 Banelings have to blow up on each ghost. ByuN takes a lovely fight. Now he's just got to withstand the next wave. If we could see that production tab, Masslings coming across the map. I know what that looks like on the minimap. He's got nothing to deal with the Broodlords. He's trying to scramble together a defense, and Mass Zergling killing 28 Hydras in the units tab. He's remaxed on Mass Hydra. RagnaroK's going to be able to run in here and overwhelm this. The Ghost trying to defend, but there just wasn't enough units here. ByuN unable to withstand this avalanche of Zerg. Just too many Broodlords microed too well. And we see that Ghosts, when there's good fungals, when there's good coverage on the ground, do not necessarily beat Broodlords. It's all about the micro, the engagements, and the angles that you take. And my gosh, the supply is so even, but where is it for ByuN? As you said, it's all popping out and dying as it pops.
Yeah, that's what I've been asking for the last few, the last minute really. Again, an extended battle as far as StarCraft 2 goes. It does look like RagnaroK just simply has too much momentum. The remax on just pure base units, I suppose you could call them, tier 1 and tier 2, Ling, Baneling, Hydra really was again a good call because it needed to be fast and it needed to be max. ByuN, given time, had the bank. And then the last game, he was given just enough time twice. This time around, it really was down to time. It wasn't down to the actual engagement or the actual bank. He had both of them okay. It was the time, but maybe
wait. Zombie girl.
The bank is actually starting to, yeah,
ByuN's
the bank is
rebuilding
actually
barracks.
proving to be good enough.
This is madness. This is absolutely crazy. He's rebuilding 12 barracks on the right side of the map right now. He's dropping so many mules. He's got so many minerals. His gas income's not amazing. He's losing tech and infrastructure. He's going to clean up this army. It's actually trapped in here. He's going to move in with Thors and Liberators. This is wild. RagnaroK doesn't really have much income behind this. He's mined out his side of the map a lot quicker. The Thors popping out, having a swap to high-impact payload, trying to snipe down Infestors in the midst of the action. The Liberators and Thors will take this out. Oh my lord, this game is an absolute scrap fest. RagnaroK really must have thought he had this one in the bag, but he just couldn't quite finish him off.
How many times do you see the Zerg player break into the natural and specifically the main base of the Terran, and that's pretty much game over, especially when it's mass crackling, because the crackling just surrounds every unit that pops out. So they're never very effective. But because ByuN
going Hydras, do you think? Or
yes, I do think that. I saw, because one of the first things that looked like this might be like an okay situation was that ramp hold. I think we might get a highlight, I don't know, but that ramp hold, and then he just mass sniped Hydras. I think Hydras were not necessarily all that beneficial in the way that he was hoping. I still love the idea. I absolutely love the idea that RagnaroK said, let's go, let's take this momentum, let's try and win right here, right now. What are the fastest units, and what's some backup on those units in case, 5 Marines get tucked into a corner, because that's when Lings suck. But it wasn't all coming out in due time, and ByuN had so much production everywhere, and again, so much bank, that even if he was losing a handful of production units this way and that to reinforcements, he was still building. And now he's counter pushing against RagnaroK.
Oh my lord, there's no Banelings this time. 14 of them are morphing, but they're not ready just yet. He needs the Banelings to clear up the Hellbats. But look at this, ByuN is shoving on in towards this central rich gas base. That's going to get sniped. Does ByuN want to keep going on creep? He's got a 50 supply army lead. That is huge. You're down in workers, but you've got a big army lead. It might just be a winning play to push. He's going to back off. I like the cautious approach. I actually really respect that. It's just Ling, Bane, Hydra, and adding siege tanks, adding ghosts. That's the way to do it. Tanks counter Banelings and Hydras. Ghosts counter the Vipers. Mix some Marines and everything else in as well. And oh my god, look at the spread. Beautiful setup for ByuN.
Yeah, RagnaroK, what was... I guess he just really wasn't expecting that much Terran army. But that's it, man. ByuN, he holds on after his production, or most of his production, gets camped. Usually the fatal blow of the Terran. He just had too much. He had too many bases, too much economy, too much production. He brings it back, man. We're tied up.
Those 5 factories down at the third base just popping Thors out. They're dying, popping them out. They're dying, popping them out. They finally got control of part of his production, and that force actually came back into the base and defended. Wow. I really feel like a lot of Terrans would have given up there and said, man, I can't believe he's just broken through with this ridiculous waves that he does again. But ByuN realized in this game, he was like, no. He's being crazy inefficient. There is always a chance. Use that defensive power. Hang on, however you can. And of course, here you can see a couple of Vikings were doing a lot of good jobs picking things off, as with the snipes. But there's just a few moments like this where, look at that, it's like abducting air units, blinding, clouding tanks. So many good engages with the Broodlords that made things really hard for ByuN.
Yeah, this was the start of the big question mark, like where's ByuN's army? Why is the supply staying okay? Then RagnaroK remaxed, and it looked more in line with what our vision of an end game scenario would be. Oh, I'm sorry, Terran, you ran out of supply. The Zerg player remaxes faster. I'm sorry. And then ByuN just continued to hold on. And RagnaroK's last hurrah, possibly also a recognition that he was pretty much dead, and he just was like, okay, let's just go ahead and get it done. But no, ByuN actually had a very good army at the end, certainly more powerful than what RagnaroK had left over after spending all of his bank thinking that he had won the game in ByuN's base.
That's just so weird to see, like, a base just so overrun and have units pop out at pro level. You almost never see that. Like, it's so bizarre, but really cool to see that ByuN hung in there and just realized, hey, Terran defense, Terran power, believe in the metal, believe in those tanky buildings to buy you time to get out another army. And Zerg production might be great, but their units are a little bit more fragile as a result. This man is not going to be giving up. He feels he should be the favorite in this matchup. He's going to force a third game here. And I would have loved to see him change up his build order that's put him behind 2 games in a row. And it looks like that SCV on the low ground is going to go for the same build. In the bottom left, this is Shopify Rebellion's ByuN.
In the top right. Oh, do you want?
All yours.
You can do it. Okay. All right. In the top right, it is RagnaroK. Go ahead.
Just getting excited. I'm so giddy from that last game. I can't even contain myself. But add-ons on the outside. You've mentioned this a few times, and a build order that has consistently put you behind in this series, and ByuN does it again. I'm going to go out on a limb and say ByuN is showing amazing ability to really play out these long games and patiently fight back from behind. But I think his opening build choice is terrible. I'm going to be very critical there, and that makes it more impressive when he wins. Like that last game, I think was very impressive. I think game 1, remember, he was really far, like, oh, not that far, but, you know, he's a bit behind, got himself back in a really good position. Unfortunately for him, RagnaroK has once again played the gas pool opening. I feel almost like ByuN here was going for the triple bluff, where he's like, you won't expect me to do it 3 times in a row. Ha ha ha. RagnaroK did. RagnaroK has blind counted the build, and he's going to be starting off with such a good start.
Right, he is. You'd have to ask ByuN why he's favoring this build, despite its, you know, not really giving him a lot of success. At no point really do I say it was super successful. And then why not just do a more normal build? His answer could honestly be, well, no matter what, this kind of puts me in a good position. Not good, it's not the right word. It's kind of a safe opener, right? Because if he ends up scouting that it's roaches, you can defend that 100%. We've seen ByuN do that. So then it is about you having presence on the map, and then you get to do whatever you want, where you could, again, argue 1-Rax expand into Hellions, into a drop build, things that ByuN is certainly capable of doing, does leave you kind of open for that particular moment, the early game. And while Zerg has been lowered in their threat level as far as their early all-ins go, there's a couple of Zergs who absolutely still do it, and RagnaroK's one of them. So I could see that being kind of the train of thought.
Yeah, there's an argument for that for sure, Zombie Grub. And I mean, it's interesting because I kind of want to see more roach all-ins against this. I really wonder, like, hey, with the bunker out front to protect the add-ons, because that's what you have to go for to defend the roach counterattack in this situation, gets really weird. Oh, gets the creep tumor, gets in, gets out. Very slick for ByuN. And you were calling for this earlier, the 2-1-1 follow-up. Just go for the factory, go for the starport. So 3 different follow-ups in 3 different games for ByuN.
And I do like that. So whatever the reason, they feels very comfortable for the 2-Rax opener, you know, whatever. But it does lead naturally into the 2-1-1 follow-up, more naturally than everything else. Although following up with 4-Rax, following up with a faster 3cc isn't exactly, you know, bad or super unideal. But I do like this follow-up. I do think that ByuN is definitely powerful with general 2-1-1, whether it's 3cc or 2cc. What are you uh-ohing?
Oh, sorry. I thought those lings were set up for the surround, but they gave it up.
Oh, seems like the Reapers will stay alive for a little while longer. But anyways, on the subject of 2-1-1, which is a very, like, it's the mid-game build, right? It's what we're kind of waiting for. I do wonder how much of this game, of this series, is turning into these super long games because they both identify each other as particularly strong in the mid-game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, and that's a weird thing that can happen, and now they're just both playing macro games. And like, but one of you maybe should try and take advantage of what you're best at, but then maybe a lot of respect is being shown to both of them. I don't know.
No, that's definitely like a factor that happens. You're like, well, I'd be silly to attack into the dude that just masses banelings, or I'd be silly to attack into the guy that, you know, is so heavy on his 2-base Terran versus Zerg timings. Like, come on, of course not. Like, I'm waiting for him to attack me. So yeah, they're both kind of waiting for the other to attack them a little bit. Neither one's stepping into the other's trap. And
oh my God,
that's what happens when you're both waiting for the other to make the first move and slip up. It can end up being a little bit slower. And the game does play out. That Reaper micro is exceptional, by the way. For those who don't know, maybe you're new to StarCraft, ByuN is responsible for this unit, the Reaper, getting nerfed on like 6 different occasions. Like, he is so good at using this unit. Its grenade used to be 1,000 times better than it is now. It used to like maybe move faster, build faster. There's been so many different nerfs over the years, I can't even keep track of it. But he's won a literal world championship off the back of his Reaper control, so everybody fears his Reapers.
Yeah, if let's talking about the explode buildings grenade, which is a long time past. The current iteration of the grenade has had its cooldown changed, its damage changed for sure, and then maybe even its knockback changed. You know, like
maybe
a lot of things about the grenade changed.
In the old days, it was just an alternative attack, I believe, that did like 30 damage to buildings. It was like
I've been watching StarCraft history, like just watching like GSL season 1, and I forgot that for the first season, Nitro Packs was a very popular opening build.
Oh wow!
TVZ. yeah.
Speed. I forgot Reaper Speed existed. Yeah.
Good times, man.
Well, Auto Turret Harass completely knocked back here by RagnaroK. Doesn't even lose a single drone. Very nicely done. I really want to see that Raven survive for future clearing ups. And here we go. Big Marine tank push on the left side of the map. Let's see what he can find with it. 1-1 upgrades aren't here. Neither is combat shields. Those are just stim Marines. Auto turret in the main base again in the picture in your bottom right. Queen's starting to drop. The banelings aren't quite ready. Oh no, RagnaroK might have slipped up.
Yeah, those banelings coming in just seconds late. A lot of queens are able to be removed, and even when the banelings are finished, if you don't have enough kind of accompanying them, you know, 16 Marines in ByuN's hands are still very, very scary. Already feeling like this is more of what I expected from this TVZ. A little action pack, mid-game push, early mid-game push from the Terran. RagnaroK on a bit of the ropes. This time around, we have the Raven surviving. I mean, honestly, last game was once again setting up, you know, kind of from the get-go to be passive, and unfortunate for ByuN with his Raven dying right off the bat. This time around, we get the drop, we get the push, we get the kills, we get the Raven out of there, I guess. And, well, this feels like ByuN in his mid-game element.
Raven just hanging out on the right side of the map, waiting. It's going to drop an auto turret perhaps before exiting, but no, does decide to just pull on out. Wants to rotate that with some Marines to clear up creep on the right side of the map. Anti-armor missile can also be massive as well. Combat shields was remembered, so a sigh of relief for the Terran fans out there, as that is one of the most forgotten upgrades in all of StarCraft. But the Marines will get that plus 10 hit points. Very important against Zerglings and Banelings. And, oh, here we go. Bit of an ambush for RagnaroK.
But off creep with slow banelings. That wasn't so much an ambush.
He thought he was ambushing. Let's put it that way, Zombie Grub. He thought he was the ambusher, but he was walking into a trap. Oh, my lord. He saw the door was left open. He walked inside. He saw some valuables on the table, went to pick them up, and then he realized the door had closed behind him. ByuN stepped out with a chainsaw, and that was not a good situation for RagnaroK at all. Now the momentum is all on ByuN's side. He's taken so much damage as RagnaroK. The spawning pool goes down. The Marines pick up. They've already taken out the 4th base. They're going to go back to the low ground. So much control in this game now for ByuN. He's in his element, and this is what we expected ByuN to do. A lot more aggression and multitasking to really just leverage his mechanics.
And also just really set RagnaroK off, you know, just be like, you know, you have to respond to me, which I honestly think RagnaroK was going to be worse at. Yeah, if RagnaroK survived, which I think he's totally capable of, I'm saying he's that much worse. If he survived and got maxed out and lane baneling all day long, then yeah, he's very scary. I think we're absolutely right to call that for him, but it's leading up to that point that I would figure that ByuN would be able to abuse, and finally we see it work out in this 3rd game. RagnaroK then just gifting him so many units and such an obvious green light to attack into him as well is a real bummer. I mean, you compared it to the door closing behind him. I think of that commercial where they go and hide from the serial killer in the chainsaw like shit. and you're like, that just, oof, that was, and it just gets worse. No cancel right there, right? Yeah, no cancel.
Oh, yeah, that is a tough one right now. RagnaroK so far behind on supply, and the Raven becomes the most annoying unit in these scenarios. Yeah, you want the spores and the queens behind the mineral lines to stop that, but oh, the marine drop on the right side is still going. These 7 marines, absolute veterans. They've taken down so many Lings, Banes, and drones. The marines on the left side also taxing RagnaroK on every which way. The 2-2 upgrades are ahead. 4th command center is finishing, and he's up to 8 barracks behind it. So ByuN, he's even going to set up siege tanks in. Oh, the disgusting positions of these tanks. This is so hard for RagnaroK to deal with.
Oh, man. Yeah, and there's 2 tanks, guys. One on the right, one on the left. With everything going on, RagnaroK just kind of fizzles out, taps out, and gives ByuN the 2-1 victory to advance on in the bracket. Such a funny way that best of 3 played out when you keep in mind who the players were.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a RagnaroK thing to do, is to avoid those situations we saw in game 3 and just find a way to look beastly. But at the end of the day, ByuN was just too good, found his element, and managed to fight back. Let's hear from the guys over on the desk.
Thank you very much, guys. What a Bobby Dazzler of a series. I cannot believe how far that series went. Joining me, Wardy, as well as the Muslim. Wardy, what on earth did we just witness?
You know what? Like, it was kind of what you expect out of these two sometimes. The long games, the grindy games, and then ByuN just deciding, like, hey, remember that I'm ByuN, and sometimes it just come across and kill you, like, nice and early in comparison to those first games. Awesome games, though. I mean, really fun first game. It was really close for a very long time. Second game, very similar. Just really cool kind of, you know, differences when you go into late game TVZ and just seeing all that spell casting and the ghosts and trying to stop those ghosts from being so kind of crazy good. It was just an awesome series, right? I mean, it's TVZ. Oof. Kind of at its best. I mean, me and Ben were talking about it during the, during the games, and we were saying, man, TVZ is just so fun when it kind of gets into these kind of situations.
Yeah, definitely. These highlights brought to you by RagnaroK and Ben. Some of the moments in this series were absolutely... I think the casters described it best. Kind of disgusting. So many Banelings crashing into so much stuff. And then this scenario, I had question marks around it as well. I thought RagnaroK had done it, but clearly not.
I mean, there was lines of GG in the Twitch chat, right, when that happened, and then it's like, wait a minute, ByuN's rich as hell. Like, it's really fun when you've got these kind of games going on, because as casters in the back, we're like, wait, who's actually winning? Like, oh, it's good for this, it's good for this, and like, to see it happen like that. But then this third game, ByuN really switched it up. Like, no longer was he all about sitting back. He was like, okay, I'm gonna get in the face of you right here, right now. Let's not make this another long one. And that third game felt like the most ByuN game out of the 3 by far, because we all know that he's got sick control. We all know he's very good at just sticking it in the face of you, microing better than almost anybody on the planet. And yeah, RagnaroK just couldn't keep up in that third game. But it was very nice to see that the series, it went the full distance, and those first 2 games were really damn awesome and cool. Just see what TVZ does offer these days.
Yeah, kind of crazy stuff. Wow, what a series to round out the Korean bracket here for the moment. I'm wondering if we're going to be checking in with the brackets as well here between all of this, because clearly we've had some upsets here and there, and now ByuN has been able to vanquish RagnaroK for that 2-1. And once again, Wardy, when you're looking at this bracket and you're seeing RagnaroK fall to yet another Terran 2-1, I mean, these games are going the distance, but ZVT seems to really cause RagnaroK some problems at the moment.
I don't know if he's just on like a bit of an unlucky streak as well, though, because like he's getting the game wins. It's not like he's getting swept 2-0 and he's not looking good in the games, right? It's just it's almost that kind of RagnaroK that we used to see maybe a couple of years ago, where consistency was an issue, and sometimes like if that game 3 happens where you just don't survive the early game, he's in trouble. Yeah, and then otherwise he's able to force into very long kind of fun games as well, just maybe not decisive enough sometimes as well, not able to kind of get that killer motion on the go at all and kind of end the games early, which maybe would sometimes help too against these Terrans. So yeah, just I think a bit unlucky. We'll see if he has a redemption arc in the lower bracket.
Sure. Terran doing all right in the upper bracket though, Ben, eh? Not too bad. It's no Terrans getting knocked down to that lower bracket.
Yeah, not too shabby, not too shabby. I was just thinking to myself, like, that lower bracket looks almost scarier than the upper bracket, which is really weird. Like, you've got Hero and Dark down there, but maybe it was just my Terran bias coming in, all those easy to beat Terrans. But no. I think it's cool. Like, these days so far, they have not been super one-sided. And I mean, just having results like Gumiho beating Hero, Solar beating Dark, I mean, that's not that big of an upset, but yeah, it's just very, very nice to see what we're having done here. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to a Maru versus Solar again, because that's one that I just have nuke galore and nuke nostalgia in my mind. So yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, I think the time it happened, I was on. I was in space in almost exactly the same location. So yeah, kind of scary, the potential of that going down. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's time to go to a break. On the other side of this break, when we return, we are going to start that non-Korean bracket. Get that good to go to see how Gamers Without Borders goes up against the world players. Let's do it.